On November 11, 2022, at exactly 10:41 p.m., Liam arrived at his cousin Ava's place in upstate New York for a weekend stay. The old farmhouse had been in the family for decades, filled with creaking floors and drafty rooms. During a stormy night, with the wind howling through the cracks, Liam went exploring. In the basement, lit only by a single dangling bulb, he found something odd. A wooden chair placed dead center on the concrete floor. A folded paper note was taped to the seat. It read, "Do not sit, it's not your turn." Liam laughed, thinking it was one of Ava's weird gothic vibes. He shouted upstairs, asking if it was a Halloween leftover. No response. The storm had knocked out cell service and Wi-Fi earlier. Alone, amused, and curious, Liam did what any bored 22-year-old would do. He sat. The moment he did, the light bulb flickered. Then the power went out completely. Pitch black. Silence. A deep chill settled over the room. Then, a click. The power returned. But Liam was gone. Ava found the basement the next morning after he failed to come up for breakfast. No sign of him. Nothing disturbed. Except one thing. The chair was no longer facing the center of the room. It was turned toward the door. Let me ask you something. If you saw a note warning you not to sit, would you obey it? Or would you test fate just to see what happens? Hold that thought. I'll tell you what I think in just a moment. Ava called the police, but they found no signs of forced entry, no footprints, no evidence Liam had even gone into the basement. The only unusual detail in the report was this. Chair appeared to have been moved post-incident, facing exit. Weeks passed. Ava boarded up the basement, but sometimes she hears footsteps from below, heavy, slow, like someone pacing, waiting. So my answer, I wouldn't sit, not because I'm superstitious, but because when something says, it's not your turn, it means it's waiting for someone else. And if you sit too early, you might take their place. It's impossible, but it happened. On July 14th, 2022, at exactly 8:32 p.m., Hannah and Mark stumbled upon a charming yard sale outside an old Victorian house just off Willow Lane in Charleston, South Carolina. Among dusty trinkets and faded books sat a beautiful hand-carved chair, dark mahogany, red velvet cushions, clawed legs. It looked centuries old. The seller, an elderly woman with sunken eyes, said only one thing before they paid: never sit in it after midnight. They both laughed it off. That night, they placed the chair in a corner of their bedroom. By 1 a.m., as they lay in bed, Hannah heard it, the slow creak of wood, like someone sitting down, then standing up, again and again. She turned on the light. The chair was empty. For days, the sound returned, always after midnight, sometimes accompanied by a faint sigh. Mark tried to rationalize it, old wood, shifting air. But Hannah knew better. She felt something watching them. Then came the night of July 20th. At 12:58 a.m., Mark jokingly said, "Let's test it," and sat in the chair. Hannah laughed nervously. A minute passed, 2. He grinned at her, and then he vanished. Gone. No puff of smoke, no noise, just gone. The chair creaked once and went still. The police couldn't explain it. No signs of forced entry. No trace of Mark. Hannah told them everything. But who believes a story about a cursed chair? Now, every night, the chair creaks, like someone shifting, restless, waiting. Let me ask you something. If someone warned you never to sit in something after midnight, would you do it anyway? I'll tell you what I think. I would never sit in it. Because some furniture holds more than memories. It holds souls. If you ever buy something secondhand, ask who owned it before and how they died. And whatever you do, don't sit in it after midnight. It's impossible, but it happened. On October 3rd, 2021, at exactly 6:47 p.m., 4 urban explorers entered the long-abandoned Briar Cliff nursing home just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It had been shut down since the early 2000s after multiple reports of mistreatment, unexplained deaths, and a fire that destroyed the East Wing. The group, Sam, Elena, Troy, and Liv, documented everything for their ghost hunting channel. But there was one thing they didn't expect to find: a lone armchair in the middle of the main hall. No dust, no cobwebs, just sitting there, like it had been waiting. It was Troy who dared to sit in it first, laughing, joking, waving at the camera. But within seconds, the laughter stopped. He stiffened. His smile vanished. Then he whispered, "It knows." When Elena asked what he meant, he didn't respond. He just sat there, pale, frozen. And when they tried to pull him up, he wouldn't move. Couldn't. His eyes were open, but it was like no one was home. Back at the motel, Sam reviewed the footage and noticed something terrifying. As Troy sat down, there was a voice, barely audible under the static, a whisper, looping over and over. "I see what you did. So now I ask you, if a chair offered to reveal your darkest secret, would you sit in it? Think about that. I'll give you my answer at the end." The next morning, Troy still hadn't spoken. They took him to the hospital, but doctors found nothing wrong. No brain trauma, no drugs, just silence. Just silence. He was physically there, but mentally gone, as if the voice had hollowed him out. Sam and Liv returned to Briarcliff 2 nights later, desperate for answers. The chair was still there, empty. Liv wanted to destroy it, burn it, anything. But Sam, curious and shaken, sat down. He never heard the whisper out loud. It was inside his head. It said his name. Then it began listing things, exact things. Things he'd never told anyone. Things he thought were buried forever. And then it said something chilling. "You'll join the others soon." He jumped up screaming, barely able to breathe. But Liv wasn't so lucky. She'd vanished without a sound, without a trace. All that remained was the camera, still recording, pointed at the chair. And now, my answer. Would I sit in it? No, not for the truth, not for curiosity, not even for closure. Because if a whisper knows your secrets, it might also know how to keep you. Some chairs are cursed, not because of who sat in them, but because of who still does. It's impossible, but it happened. On March 18, 2023, at exactly 9:15 p.m., a group of students attended a private after-hours tour of the Black Ridge Historical Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. Among the dimly lit exhibits, one stood out, a roped-off Victorian chair enclosed in glass. The plaque beneath read only, "17th century ritual seat, do not touch." Naturally, that made it irresistible to one 17-year-old named Eli. When the guide stepped away, Eli unhooked the rope, opened the glass door, and sat. His friends laughed, snapping photos, daring him to make spooky faces. But within seconds, Eli's smile faded. He sat still, eyes glassy, lips parted, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Then, he got up and walked away without a word. Later that night, in the hotel room, Eli began scribbling symbols into the margins of a guidebook, strange looping markings that no one recognized. When his roommate Ben tried to talk to him, Eli just stared and muttered in a voice that wasn't his. The words weren't English. They weren't anything anyone could understand. That same night, he carved one of the symbols into the wooden headboard above his bed. When questioned, Eli said he didn't remember doing it, said he hadn't even been awake. Now let me ask you this. If something in a museum told you to sit down, would you? Even if it was meant to stay locked away? Think carefully. I'll give you my answer soon. The next morning, the museum curator, an older woman named Miriam Griggs, saw the security footage and immediately called the school. She arrived at the hotel in person, visibly shaken. When she saw the symbols Eli had drawn, she turned pale. "This isn't a prank," she whispered. "That chair was used in 1694 during a series of possession rituals conducted by a coven that believed spirits could be summoned into vessels, human ones." She looked at Eli, then added, "And once invited in, they don't always leave." By the end of the trip, Eli's condition worsened. He no longer responded to his name, and sometimes his voice would shift mid-sentence, deep, gravelly, unnatural. His parents took him to specialists. Nothing worked. But every night, he still draws. The same symbols, over and over. So what's my answer? No, I'd never sit in it. Because some objects don't belong in our world anymore. And some seats aren't for resting, they're for summoning.